We're back. I am Rob Ellis. He is Derek Gunn. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network, hanging out with you on this. You got to adjust your brain a little bit to it's Tuesday, right? As opposed to Monday. It's got a little bit of a Monday feel, doesn't it?
It does, man. It's like we're playing catch up, you know?
It's not bad. It's not a bad thing, but you just got to get yourself in the right mindset for sure.
You know, sometimes you don't mind a shorter week.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're so swamped with everything else, and you get this shorter week, and it helps the week go by quicker.
Right.
You know, in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so in that regard, sometimes the short week is good for the mind and the soul.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. All right. So we touched on it a little bit earlier. The Sixers hire Nick Nurse. Now, it came down to the Sixers and the Suns. By all accounts, it was his desire to coach Embiid and his history with Daryl Morey, who played into it. And again, he was hired by Morey as a G League coach with the Rockets back in the day. It's funny, he and Embiid have a history of kind of chirping at each other publicly. And Nurse, if you remember in the playoff series a few years back, complaining about foul calls. And Joel said, I'm paraphrasing, but I said, I think he's a great coach. I think he does an awesome job. I do. But I just said to him respectfully, stop bitching about the calls. And it was kind of funny. And Joel sort of handled it like, professionally and not going overboard or anything like that. But it was one of those deals where you're like, oh, okay. But this is what I love, too, about sports, though. Like, okay, nobody's holding grudges, whatever. We went at it. Yeah. We battled, and you move on, and it's all good. So apparently those guys are in a good place right now. And they're good. So here's the deal with Nurse. Very aggressive as a defensive coach, thought of in a lot of ways as an innovator. 5 seasons as the Raptors head coach, 227 and 163, which is a 582 winning percentage. They won it in 2019. We know that the 4 bounce, Kawhi Leonard shot, but they win it that year. He wins Coach of the Year the following year, where they go 53 and 19. We mentioned will hold players accountable. He likes to mix it up defensively. He has no problem playing a little zone. He'll go some zone. He'll go full court press. He likes to do the sort of blitzing thing with certain players like Joel Embiid, where you throw a bunch of guys, scrambling style defense. Now, the knock is the last couple of years, his team really struggled to score the ball, especially in the half court set.
Yeah.
Now, some of that is you lose players like Kawhi Leonard and some of the other quality players that you lose, you're naturally going to take a hit. So, there's certainly positive and negative. I definitely think there's more positive than there is negative for sure.
The way I see it is this, Rob. It was time for a change. I think they had gone as far as they could with Doc Rivers, and that's not a knock against Doc. It's just that you never got past your team never kept improving. It got to a point, and then it became stagnant. And when that happens, teams always look to make a change. You go so far, you have a formula. The formula worked to a certain degree, but it didn't get you to your ultimate destination. So what do? You start over. You start over with the coach, and hopefully you don't have to start over with a complete overhaul of personnel to try to get back and make it a little bit better than it was. Nick Nurse is a really good coach. I know a lot of people don't like his style. That's understandable. A lot of people do, though. And obviously he was highly coveted when you hear all the rumors that, Milwaukee was interested, Phoenix, Philadelphia. So obviously a lot of people in the NBA circles have a lot of respect for him. I just want to see, because if you're kind of coach that's not afraid to get in the grill of your star player as well as the last man on the bench, I want to see how he handles that, because his star player here has never had anybody who's had to ride him for anything. And I don't want to see it get to a point where there's unwarranted tensions in a locker room on a daily basis, and you start to hear these little rumors. Joel Embiid doesn't want to play for Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse feels Joel is not excelling. Yeah, you want to hear that. Those are distractions you don't need when you're trying to put together a winning entity. And it's going to take some time between the two parties. The players getting a feel for Nick getting a feel for who and when he can use certain players in certain situations. And then, of course, to what degree is he going to have a hand in terms of reshaping this roster? And if he's, you know what I mean? because the new coaches, all new coaches have a certain type of player they're looking for to run their offense and to play their defense. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly to what degree the complexion of this roster changes. We believe on the surface that it's not going to change much, but maybe we're not looking at some elements that the Sixers are already looking at that could see not an overhaul, but a change in key elements on this team.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing to figure out right now is just how dramatic the changes are going to be, and how you want to maybe reshape this roster to make it fit what Nurse likes to do, as opposed to maybe what Doc Rivers liked to do or what Brett Brown liked to do. That part we don't know. It would appear they have limitations from a cap standpoint, from just a personnel standpoint, and of course there's the giant specter of Harden hanging over everything. We don't know that changes so many different things if he's here or he's not here, and the way you go about things. And can you move Tobias Harris? So it's hard to handicap this team right now, Derek, to what they're going to look like or how good they're going to be, because we have no idea right now if Harden or Harris, who are two starters and two huge pieces of this thing, are going to be here. But back to real quick with the Doc thing. I'm sorry, with the Nurse thing and Joel, in terms of holding him accountable. You know, it goes one of two ways. Let's look at the positive first. The positive is Joel accepts some tough love. He accepts constructive criticism. He realizes that whatever he was doing the last 9 years of his career wasn't enough to get past the second round, and is willing to accept and take that on, right? So that's the positive of this. Like, that's if you're looking at it glass half full, okay? Now, the half empty part is it just doesn't rub him the right way. He and Nurse don't see eye to eye. They don't get along. And he gets to the point where he says, you know what? I don't think I'm going to win a championship in Philadelphia. I've accomplished the MVP. I've made all-star games. I've gotten paid. I want to win one before my career's over.
Right.
I want to go somewhere else, like a lot of other superstars do in this league. That's the downside of this thing is, you know, we could be a year away from him saying, it ain't working for me here. Move me on. But to me, you're at a crossroads if you're the Sixers. Like, it ain't working the way you've been going about it right now. So take a shot. And then if Joel Embiid forces your hand, then you're going in a completely different direction. That's the way I view it. Like, I don't care, frankly, if he doesn't like it. And if that results in him wanting out, then it's probably time to move on anyway, because you're not winning anything.
Yeah, you know, and JM here in our chat brings up a good point. He says, I hope he tries to develop the young guys, unlike Doc.
Great point.
Yeah, I want to see a deeper, versatile bench. I want to see what he can get out of some of these guys that were forgotten entities. I want to see Melton become more of an integral part of this offense. I want to see, you know, in some ways, Niang have more freedom. You know, I compare it to Miami. You know, Miami has a lot of interchangeable parts. You know, and I think Jimmy Butler said it best. Each and every day, our guys are called on to do something different. And I want to see a roster like that. I mean, it was good enough for an 8 seed to get all the way to the NBA Finals. And I do believe the Phillies, the Sixers do have the components on the bench to make them more of an integral and productive part of the team flow. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, Doc had his favorites and kept playing those guys, and very seldom would he play some of the other guys. We were wondering, why are they on the bench if you're not even going to give them a chance? Mm-hmm. So I hope Nick starts with a fresh, clean slate, looks at everybody and everything openly, and comes up with a formula where, you know what, this guy is good for 3 or 4 minute stretches. I know I can use him early in the third and fourth quarter to give us a spark, and then go back to other guys if I have to. I hope it's more of a variety of how Nick forces you to defend his team on a daily basis. What are you smiling about? Somebody waving at you?
Yes.
Was it a female?
Maybe.
Look at you blushing. You over there flirting. Maggie's flirting at Panera. Maggie, when Adam, no, you're flirting. It's the smile thing. Oh, you acknowledge their presence. See,
Adam, I don't want to be rude. I say hi. That's all.
Okay, whatever. Adam's exploits just said, "Hey, how can we buy Rob a drink at Panera Bread?" See, and I'm looking at you. You got that Cheshire cat grin on your face. You look. I know that you ain't smiling like that. She must have
Duck and Kevin. Yes, go ahead.
Let me ask you this: based on the smile on your face,
yes,
was she strong?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Look at you. You can't stop blushing, dude. Are you serious?
Yes. To answer your question, everybody. Yes. Strong. Yes. Would make the strong list for sure.
If I were you, I wouldn't go home after the show.
There's been some talent out on the lunch break. We'll just leave it at that. Yes, there's been some talent here. Yeah.
All right, your job in the next commercial break is to take some stills so we can grade the talent.
Now you're really trying to get me in trouble. Anyway, so I have no idea what you're just talking about. Oh yeah, Nick Nurse. All right. So no, but I think that too, you wonder, this is where we're also going to find out how adaptable Nick Nurse is. What I mean by that is, he does like to do things a certain way, and you can only do so much to make over your roster. He's going to have to adapt to just, frankly, to some of the players who are here. But just to get back to the point that you were talking about, I think that JM made, what really drove me nuts about Doc was a couple of things. Like, clearly, Paul Reed should have been backing up Joel Embiid the entire season, and getting the minutes when Joel Embiid was not in the game. We had to go through like Montrezl Harrell, and they bring in Dwayne Dedmon. Like, for what? It was clear to everybody that Paul Reed could play. And I get he can be frustrating sometimes, and he'll commit a bad foul here or there. But you know what? The guy was aggressive. The guy hustled. He changed the impact of the game when he came in. And you saw that, and that was, but Doc just had this thing against the guy, and I think part of it was because he was younger. It drove me crazy.
If you bring in a Nick Nurse, you have to give him the freedom to do what he needs to do, to implement his culture, his way of doing things, and I believe that's why Nick took the job, saying, "Okay, hey, wait a minute, are you going to give me a elbow room to do this, that, or the other?" Yeah. You have to. What you had worked to a certain degree, and then it stopped itself.
Yeah.
Give him a chance to repaint the landscape, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be doing it with basically the same pieces. Can you get better production out of those pieces?
Yeah.
You got to give me the leeway to attempt to do something like that, or else my coming there is futile, plain and simple.
Well, I will tell you this too. Like I said, I wanted Nurse more than anybody else, but I am thrilled that it's not Mike D'Antoni. I'm happy it's not Budenholzer. I mean, you watched the lack of adjustments up close and personal with Budenholzer over the years. And granted, the guy did win a championship. There's no doubt. But there were some other candidates that really, frankly, didn't move the needle at all for me. And I think, to the Sixers' credit, they landed their guy. I would guess, considering the guy in Phoenix, who's, I think, a little crazy, probably backed up a Brinks truck to try and get him there. They probably paid Nick Nurse very, very well. So I will give him that. I won't throw a lot of compliments Josh Harris's way, but I'll give him props for this. They closed the deal, and you have to think that Morey and the head coach are very much simpatico, like they're in sync with each other and of the same beliefs. And all that can do is help, I think, when you're trying to coach a team and bring in personnel to fit what the coach likes to do. So I think that's a positive.
Well, I also wonder, did the Milwaukee Bucks do the 76ers a favor by hiring Adrian Griffin, who was the Raptors assistant coach?
Yep.
Because there was also a rumor that Nick Nurse was the Bucks' #1 candidate.
Yeah.
For a while. And then all of a sudden you hear the story about Giannis had a hand in getting Adrian Griffin signed as the new head coach of the Bucks. So I wonder, could Nurse have gone to Milwaukee had he not Milwaukee gone on a different route? And you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that to me was a very positive sign when I saw that over the weekend that Adrian Griffin was going there. I mean, I figured it came down to the Sixers and the Suns for Nurses, because where else would he go? He wasn't obviously going back to Toronto. He wasn't going to go to, was the other one, Detroit that's open. He's not going to those places, not at this point in his career. So I figured it was coming down to one of those two. It's going to be an interesting press conference to hear what the actual. I think he's going to heap a lot of praise on Morey. He's going to heap a lot of praise on Embiid. But he's going to get asked about James Harden. He is. And that therein could be a tell to how he answers that. Because there are some people that believe that, considering Morey and Nurse are like-minded, that this means that James Harden's coming back. I don't know that it definitely means that. I don't know that for sure. But people believe that it's probably more likely that he's back. That part, like we talked about, is disappointing to me.
Here's how I think that answer will go. But it's an answer I will listen to very closely for body language. You know what? James Harden is a great basketball player, a future Hall of Famer. It is a situation that we will have to look at closely. And if it benefits our club, absolutely, we would want a James Harden here. But James Harden also has to want to be here. So I think that's how the answer will go in so many words. You cover all your bases. You don't tell anybody nothing. You just let them know, yes, we're aware of the situation. We know what James Harden could mean to this team, but we also know James Harden could possibly have other interests. But it has to fit both financially and personnel-wise for James Harden to be here. Yeah. That's the best way to get out of that right now. And then you have to wait out the summer to find out exactly what they do.
I'll tell you the other thing I'd be curious about, and I don't think we would get any kind of answers like this in any kind of press conference setting. I'm sure this kind of stuff will come out eventually, but I wonder if they reached out in any way, shape, or form to Jay Wright or Dawn Staley. Just put a feeler out. I wonder. And it could have been a situation where both were like, hey, thanks,
but no thanks. Yeah,
I'm good where I'm at. Whatever. If that's the case, obviously, the point is moot. But yeah, I'm that would be interesting to me, and I hope one of the insiders digs around a little bit and maybe we get some insight on that. I don't know. I frankly, I know I think they put out some feelers to Jay the last time when Doc was hired.
Right.
Jay wasn't quite ready to step away from Villanova at that time. But for everything I've heard, Derek, with him is he really likes his life right now. And he doesn't need that heat, that pressure. He is, he doesn't lose any games, sitting on the set at CBS. So, and he's enjoying that part of his life. So,
well, think about it. Instead of traveling weeks at a time, and especially in the summer when you're out on a recruiting trail, trying to secure, players that make your program better, you have your entire summer off.
Yep.
You have to be in a studio once a week, so you only have to travel for maybe 24 to 48 hours max to be in a studio. You still have the rest of your week to sit at home and study, watch games. You get to sit back. You get to sit back as a lifelong coach now and just watch games and analyze players.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about formulating game plans. How are these kids getting their grades, travel, all that good stuff. That's a lot of burden on any person, let alone an entire staff.
Yeah.
Are my kids staying out of trouble? Are you being productive in a classroom? Why would you want to do anything else if you're Jay Wright? Think about how many coaches, Rob, never get a sniff at winning a national championship.
Yeah.
He's won 2 in his career. Mm-hmm. He's made all the money. Villanova's basically opened Fort Knox at his feet and paid him handsomely. What else does Jay Wright want to do? He's in his early 60s. He still has a lot of life ahead of him.
That's the thing. He's got a lot of life in front of him to enjoy. Look, if you're a lifer and you're Larry Brown and you can never get it out of your system, that's fine. That no problem. But you want to work till you're 80, God bless you. But I think too often people work until they're at an older age and they don't have much time left and they regret it. You're going to get a couple of years. You've made the kind of bank that Jay Wright has made. To the victors go the spoils, man. Go enjoy it.
Yeah. And if you can enjoy it and still make a high 6 or 7-figure salary,
which he is,
for less work, for a lot less work, why wouldn't you do it? Yeah,
sign me up.
Why wouldn't you do it?
Exactly. Yeah, and look, people automatically assume when it comes to Dawn Staley, like, oh, she wants to just climb another mountain, and maybe Dawn Staley's happy where she's at. That's okay too. She's dominating the women's college basketball scene, and she's in a nice place to live. God bless. That's the way I look at it.
Your money goes a lot further in South Carolina than it does Philly.
Yes.
And she's at the top of the pecking order in the whole state of South Carolina. And her recruiting trips are academic because she's getting the best crop of players in that region.
Exactly.
Because of the pedestal she has put that program on. Mm-hmm. Why would she want the headache of dealing with the NBA night in and night out?
Right.
Who would? I mean,
I agree with you.
There are a lot of assistant coaches salivating at their prospect, but in people like Dawn Staley, who's very comfortable where she is, and Jay Wright, who's now enjoying life, having more time for himself instead of university.
Right.
Why would you want to give that up now?
I hear you. All right, let's come back and let's talk a little Phillies, Derek, because we sit here right now and they played 53 games. They are 25-28 after Memorial Day, and that's when people sort of turn the calendar and start digging in a little bit. and saying, okay, it's no longer early, right? So we'll talk a little Phillies when we get back. I'm going to run some numbers at you. Some are good, some are bad here. You tell me what you think. In the 2:00 hour, we will get into our NFL segment and our NFL discussion as well, including Jimmy G, Le'Veon Bell, DeAndre Hopkins, Kenny Pickett, and we're going to rank the toughest through the weakest divisions in the NFL. We'll do all of that when we return. Don't go anywhere. I'll give you a little Phillies news, too. They have added 3 to this year's Wall of Fame. 3 folks going into the Wall of Fame. We'll tell you who it is.
All right.
When we come back, he's Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. You got a home, you got a business, you have a property you own. If you go through the inconvenience and pain of water, fire, smoke, mold damage to that property, you know how trying that can be, and you're not really sure who to turn to. Well, Pro Action Restoration are the people that you turn to. They're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I know I've gone through it with my parents at their place years ago. I reached out to Pro Action Restoration on a Saturday. They got right out. They cleaned up the place. The crew was professional. The price was right. I mean, every box was checked. They are licensed, bonded, and fully insured. Pro Action Restoration has been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. They will also work in conjunction with your insurance company. So again, it could be water, it could be fire, it could be smoke damage, mold remediation. You name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or you can reach out to them online at